Welcome back, everybody. Let's take a break with Stephen Shamus.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm at my parents' house today, so that's why you see the new background.
It's nice. It's a nice room.
Not as fancy as you. Alex, you're still in your man cave, I see.
Yes, I'm back in the man cave. Yeah.
Alex, by the way, have you changed any of the? I mean, you got the same stuff hanging up
Same
on
stuff.
the walls forever.
Same stuff. I'm a creature of habit, if you will. I don't like changing it.
I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have known that. So, all right. So I think today is part 4.
Yes, the last part.
This will be our final part. We're finally done with this. Then I think coming over the next few weeks, we'll have some guest stars.
Yeah.
Right? Have some guest stars. And so we hope to have some fun stuff. And then we'll get back to our normal routine of talking about what's hot and whatnot in comics. I do think with all the movies and TV shows getting pushed a little bit, I think it definitely kind of, stalled some of the stuff that was skyrocketing. But I think once you start seeing some of the Disney Plus shows come on, whether it's Loki, whether it's Winter Soldier, there were pictures that snuck out of U.S. Agent. Those books have skyrocketed.
Yep.
The second those U.S. Agent pictures stuck, all of a sudden everyone wanted U.S. Agent. So we'll talk about that in the future show too, because those books started to take off. And then I think Loki obviously is going to have some other characters in the series. And once we start seeing who those are, you'll start to see that move forward too. So we'll get to that down in future weeks. Okay, good. All right. So Alex, so what's the plan for today? What are we doing?
We're gonna hit a couple more books, and then we're gonna jump right into maybe the most read and influential, and just probably the biggest series of the Bronze Age, the XMen.
Previously on XMen.
Right. John Byrne mostly, right? All the John Byrne stuff.
John Byrne, Chris Claremont,
Right, that kind of changed everything. Right. Okay, cool. All right, so I think we're going to start. Last week we left off with Shang-Chi. This week we're going to start with Spectacular Spider-Man. This was a book that had a very hot run for a while the show was on. The show didn't get the ratings that you would have, I think because it was on Hulu. It was the Cloak and Dagger show. It didn't get the ratings. I think had that show been on Netflix, or had that show been on an Amazon Prime, where the viewership would have been better,
bigger network,
or like on a major network, I think it actually probably would have performed better. I mean, obviously, when Feige took over all the television stuff, that was part of the stuff that got swept away. I would expect somewhere down the road you would see that again, Cloak and Dagger. So, Spectacular Spider-Man, number 64 of March of 1982. First appearance of Cloak and Dagger. It's a very, very cool cover, by the way, too.
Yeah.
It's a very memorable cover. There's only 267 9.8 blue labels, and again today, like in recent past with the Bronze Age stuff, we're only talking about blue labels today. We're not going to go into gold labels. We'll hit the gold label stuff when we get back to our normal routine next week. There's only 267 9.8. There's actually one 9.9. It's about a $575 book. Not a bad price for those two major characters. Do you want to talk a little bit? Why didn't the series work? Do you think it was just because it was on Hulu, or what is it about the two characters that they made the series and then it just didn't really work?
I think this is one of the fan favorites of the Bronze Age thing working with us again. I mean, same thing with like Ghost Rider and Blade and stuff like that, where you don't see a lot of them in media, and maybe a little bit. Obviously Cloak and Dagger had a show, but they're such fan favorites. That's why these books are always, kind of top of your grading and needing to collect them books. But like you said, I mean, like Runaways was on Hulu as well, and that did okay. I think it was 2 or 3 seasons. Yeah, I mean, they're going to use these characters again. I mean, obviously they've already used them once. They've been using them in the comics for a very long time. They're very important characters in the Marvel world. So, like you said, I mean, with Marvel and Disney Plus, I mean, Disney Plus just came out and said that they're really going into their streaming service stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see them again.
Well, my hope is this. I mean, obviously you see DC announcing that they're going to use Michael Keaton and some of the older characters. Jamie Foxx has now been cast as Electro again. If they do Maguire or
Andrew Garfield,
Garfield back as Spider-Man, I do like the fact. I mean, first of all, also when it comes to Magneto and Professor X, I mean, can anybody really do it better than McAvoy and Fassbender? I mean, can anybody? I mean, you know the characters. So even if they want to reboot the series or the movies or whatever, I mean, you would definitely love to see them bring back the two actors that portrayed Cloak and Dagger, because they seem to do a good job.
Yeah.
You know, just like people want to see Charlie Cox as Daredevil, people want to see John Bernthal as Punisher. Why would you go out and like get another Punisher? You don't need to get another Punisher. You have your Punisher.
Yeah.
You have the guy that everybody knows Punisher. You don't have to go through another, you know, telling of the origin story. You don't have to go through, you know, if you bring Charlie Cox back as Daredevil, you are, you know, I understand you want to change it, you want to do, but like Charlie Cox is Daredevil. Like everyone who thinks of Daredevil, people don't remember the Affleck movie from 17 years ago, right? Charlie Cox is Daredevil as far as everyone knows.
Yeah.
So I would like to see them bring it back, and I think I think they will, and I agree with you. I mean, I think there's a nostalgia push. I think it helps sell the films now. I mean, obviously, when people found out that Flash was going to have, you know, some of the alternate universe Batmans, I think that's very, very exciting for people. Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton coming back. It is very nostalgic that when CW did that crossover and they brought back all the old characters in the mixed universes. Ezra Miller went on that show with Grant Gustin. People really like that stuff. So I think there could be something to it. Look, it's a way to kind of, you know, bring Charlie Cox and John Bernthal and all these people into the sort of the MCU, and you don't really have to spend a lot of time going through the origin story.
Yeah, it's already there. It's built for you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So next is a very, very important book based on probably, you could argue, the number one most important film in cinema history, if not number one, certainly in the top three, I would say. I don't know how you could say otherwise. Star Wars number one from July of 1977. There are 632 9.8 blue labels, because even in 1977, that was a big book. It's still about a $2,000 book.
Yeah.
Again, you know, you didn't have a lot of movie adaptations back then. The comic series was more than a movie adaptation. It was a very, very popular run. It did very, very well. Talk a little bit. You're much more. I enjoy the Star Wars films. I think you're a bigger fan of the series. I'm more of an MCU type guy. Also, I love the Superman films.
Yeah.
The Christopher Reeve Superman films were the movies that I loved as a kid more than Star Wars. So talk a little bit about when you remember seeing Star Wars and that comic book series as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember a time not watching Star Wars. You know, it was always on like TBS or USA or something. Like, it was almost every weekend it was on some channel. But, you know, for Star Wars and the comic book series, you know, around that time, there was no internet. So, you know, if you wanted more of that content, you had to find it in novels, comic books. You know, I think there was a few, you know, audio adventures that were, you know, made in the UK. But if you love Star Wars, you could watch the movie and that's it. So when the comic came out, people ate them up. You know, it was expanding on the Star Wars universe. There was a comic strip that came before them, Al Williamson comic strip, that also expanded on the universe, and people loved them. And people still like to read more and see more of their favorite properties. And you see it with the movies, you see it with comic tie-ins. But this was a super popular book. I mean, I think that first cover, that Howard Chaykin art, you see it, you still see it everywhere. They still use it.
I know, it's pretty incredible. And like I said, you know, when you think about, you know, films that had just an impact on society, I mean, you talk about movies like The Godfather and Star Wars and those kind of films. I mean, you know, it's a very, very short list of those kinds of films that just impacted in such a way that was just so dramatic. Yeah. So dramatic. So the next one is very, very interesting, because I do remember watching the cartoons as a kid. And it kind of, you know, there are certain cartoons that I watched as a kid, and I never understood why those characters didn't break out further from those cartoons, because you would have thought that they would have had so much exposure as a child to these things. And I remember like watching the Marvel cartoons and like Iceman. Yeah. Iceman was like my favorite character. Iceman was awesome. He would just shoot the ice out and he'd go sliding around everywhere. Like, Iceman was my favorite character when I was a kid, but like, nobody ever did anything with Iceman. I always wondered to myself, like, couldn't they take advantage? Like, I would think there were like millions of kids like me watching the cartoons, like, oh my God, Iceman is the coolest character ever.
Yeah.
Because it was on every week, right? But like, Iceman never did anything. I don't know why. Anyway, one set of characters like that are the Wonder Twins, right? Like, how did that never become big, right? But anyway, their first appearance was in Super Friends #7 from October of 1977. It's the first appearance of Zan and Jaina, of course, and Gleek, you know. And there are only 13 9.8. I would have thought there were more, because Super Friends was a popular title.
It was a popular title for kids. Again, we
was a
talked about
popular
this
title.
about kids'
Yeah,
books and the price. I mean,
we trashed them because I had Super Friends comics when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I did because I love Super Friends. I love Super Friends. And there's only 13 9.8s. There's only 23 9.6 blue labels. And in 9.8, it's about $1,000 book.
Yeah.
But any thought as to why Zan and Jaina, they never materialized? I mean, every so often, DC would reboot them and put them in something here and there, but it never
Brian
really
Michael Bendis brought
materialized.
them. I mean, the Wonder comics that he's doing over at DC. I mean, there's the Wonder Twins are there. I mean, they're part of the Justice League. The Young Justice runs into him. They join the Young Justice a little bit. Like, people try to bring them in, and I don't know why it hasn't picked up with fans, because they're fun. I mean, it's fun. The Super Friends cartoons with them in it are interesting. Form of, shape of. It's just a fun thing.
Is when you say Wonder Twin powers activate, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't even have to explain to anybody what you're talking about. In the form of this, like you know that. So you would think that there would be some, like, in a movie, in a TV show, in a cartoon. But, like, you say those words and people know.
You never know. Let's see what the Zack Snyder Justice League. I mean, you could see Zack Snyder's Wonder Twins anytime now. Who knows?
Man, I can't wait for that series. I can't wait for that. It's gonna be awesome. I want to see Superman in the black costume. That's what I want to see. Okay. Next one was a part of an amazing run by Walt Simonson. This is Walt Simonson's pinnacle of his career. This is his apex. This is what he's known for. Thor, his run on Thor, of course. So Thor number 337, November of 1983. It's the first Beta Ray Bill. I am shocked that we have not seen Beta Ray Bill in the movies yet, but we'll see what happens there. There are actually two 9.9, Alex, but there are 1,001 9.8. So again, Thor was always a very, very popular title. The Walt Simonson run was on fire. Talk a little bit about Beta Ray Bill. How come Beta Ray Bill hasn't appeared more? Again, where is Beta Ray Bill?
I mean, Beta Ray Bill is theoretically in the MCU. I mean, when you watch Thor Ragnarok and they're going to the Grand Master's tower, you see his face. His face is one of the ones on the side of the building. There's a bunch of other people that have won the tournaments, and you see Beta Ray Bill's face. So I think they wanted to use him in that. They've been using him. He was used in the Thor Planet Hulk cartoon instead of Silver Surfer, which was in the comics. They used Beta Ray Bill instead. Again, another fan favorite, just a really, really fun character. He was really good in when the comics were doing the Thor Ragnarok stuff. Beta Ray Bill was there, and he was awesome. He's just a really fun looking alien Thor.
I think it's just a matter of time, my friend.
Yeah, totally.
All right, so the next one is based on a very, very popular character that remained dormant for a while. The first films were made popular by Wesley Snipes, and it's going to be brought back to life by Mahershala Ali, who's unbelievable, by the way. Totally. He was great in the Green Book. That was, it's not a movie that you think you're going to sit down and watch, and you're like, whatever. This movie is a great movie.
Yeah.
And he is so great in this movie. And after that movie, when they announced him for Blade, I was like, he's going to be great. He's going to kill it.
Yep.
He's going to just kill it. You already know that, right? And that's Tomb of Dracula number 10, Alex, from July of 1973. It's a very, very low pop book. Obviously, it's a 47-year-old book at this point. It's hard to believe, right, that the book is 47 years old. There's actually one 9.9. Can you imagine?
Wow.
There's 45 9.8s, very low pop, 113 9.6. So even a 9.6, look, we consider anything below 100 to be low pop.
Yeah.
But when you have a 9.6 at 113 and lower, like even the 9.6 is a low pop book.
Yeah.
It's a Great Gil Kane cover, as we said. So it's about a $12,000 book in 9.8. It's a $4,500 book in 9.6. It's even a $2,300 book in 9.4.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the trilogy. It's pre-MCU, it's pre-Fox, it's pre-everything, right? And it's back when Wesley Snipes was at the top of his game, right? Wesley Snipes, people forget, was a A-list actor at that time when he was doing those films.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time where, superhero films weren't a thing. I mean, everybody wanted them to be, everybody wanted a Spider-Man movie, everybody wanted an X-Men movie. The Batman movies really fizzled out hard with the last couple, the Joel Schumacher ones. And, this was a way for Marvel to kind of sell their characters and put them in the movie without it being campy. That's what happened with the Batman movies. The last couple of Batman movies were too campy. Nobody wanted that. And Blade he was a big character in the Marvel Universe comic books, people loved him, but not until Wesley Snipes played that first movie, and it was a hit. It was huge. And then the second one and third one, I mean, huge movies for a comic book character, and it's simple. It's just a vampire hunter, half vampire, half human. That's it. Nothing fancy. That's how he was in the comics. He was a vampire hunter in the comics, and took off.
Yeah. So I think the new Blade, again with Mahashara, is gonna be a big hit when it finally does come out. And the next book is a very important book. It sells for huge money, and you're gonna have to talk about this character because we haven't seen this character in too many iterations, and it's just amazing that this book sells for so much money. So it's Werewolf by Night, number 32, August of 1975. It's the first appearance of Moon Knight. In 9.8, Alex, it's a $30,000 book.
Yeah.
9.6, it's a $10,000 book. In 9.4, it's a $3,500 book. There are only 19 9.8s. There's only 78 9.6s, and there's only 199 9.4s. So even in 9.6, it's considered a low pop.
Yeah.
199 9.4s. It's a Gil Kane cover. It's unbelievable. It's the first Moon Knight. What is it about the Moon Knight character that resonates, that makes that book so incredibly valuable?
Yeah, I mean, that's just one of those characters, and we talked about it last episode, that is just like super involved in the Marvel Universe comic books and super loved by fans. I mean, it's your if you want to say it's your Marvel Batman, you can say that because he's kind of like the Marvel Batman. But there's so many iterations of him being a Egyptian god where he's got powers, or the most current stuff where he's kind of like a little crazy where he split personalities. He has 3 different personalities. But everybody likes a good Moon Knight, and everybody who's tackled him. It's almost like the Daredevil comics. Almost every Daredevil comic the past 10 years, there's been a long run by a writer and artist, and it's really good, and people always buy it and always love that character. Moon Knight's like that. There's been a lot of writers and artist teams that have taken that book and done a lot of work with it, and people just love it. They love the character.
Yeah, it's crazy, the pricing on that book. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The last one is a fascinating one, because it's not in Marvel continuity. When they announced Thor: Love and Thunder, this book just took off like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And even though it's not in Marvel continuity, just the cover, the homage, every part of it is really taking it off. So it's a John Buscema Journey into Mystery number 83 homage. So it's the first Thor appearance homage with the female Thor, Love and Thunder. It's What If number 10, August of 1978. It's the first Jane Foster as Thor. The cover depicts all of that.
It's amazing, yeah.
There's only 121 9.8. It's about an $800 book today. It's probably not more because it's not in Marvel continuity.
Right.
The newer Thor books are in Marvel continuity, and those sell for a pretty darn amount. But I think because the homage, because it's the first time you see her with the hammer, it's a very, very cool cover. We don't know a lot about Love and Thunder yet, do we? Other than she's taking the Thor hammer.
Correct.
Yeah. So we don't really know what's going to happen with that, but it sounds like she's going to be moving forward as the Thor.
Yeah, I mean, with Thor seemingly in the Guardians of the Galaxy, he's obviously going to be in the new movie in the Guardians of the Galaxy. So you would assume that Thor: Love and Thunder, I'm sure he's in it somewhat, but it's going to be a Natalie Portman Thor movie, and I would love to see the Thor movies take off from there, being Natalie Portman Thor movies. Those would be fun.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
be very, very cool. Okay, we've come to your favorite part of the show, Alex. Are you ready?
Born ready.
Are you ready for your main intro?
Yeah, you're gonna be able to do. You don't have your equipment with you this week, so are you able to do it correctly?
I got to warm up. I'm going to warm up my hands a little bit. Hold on. Let me warm up my hands. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
All right, you ready, Alex?
Born ready.
All right, it's Alex's pick of the week. What do you got for us, Alex?
Yeah, we're keeping on the promo train. And, I just picked one up off eBay, a 9.8. I've been looking for a 9.8 for a little while, but it's the Marvel Guide to Collecting Comics. It was an insert in Amazing Spider-Man number 234, and it's this newsprint insert that essentially explains all the ages, the Silver Age, Bronze Age, bags and boards, how to collect comics, how to store them. There's a little price guide in it. It's a Walt Simonson cover. There was a few that were out there in different packages. I got like a Marvel Comics collecting box and insert stuff when I was in the 90s, and it came with a Marvel box. It came with this insert, and it came with like a couple boards and bags. But you know, it's a really fun, interesting tidbit of Marvel history. In 1982, they were telling people, "Oh, this is the Silver Age. This is the Bronze Age. Oh, take care of your comics. This is what Fantastic Four is worth. This is what Amazing Spider-Man is worth." And it's a nice cover. It's a Walt Simonson cover with the X-Men, Daredevil. So it's a cool thing. It's a cool promo item, and they're not expensive. If you're a Marvel fan, if you're a Marvel fan for the Bronze Age, you've probably seen it. And if you don't own one, just grab one. They're cheap, but it's a really cool book.
Yeah. All right. Well, make sure you show our fans what.
Oh yeah, I'll put it up. I'll put it up.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So now we get to the good stuff, my friend.
The excellent stuff.
Yeah.
The exciting stuff.
So the rest of what we're going to be talking about today is X-Men. So we'll go through it, and then we'll talk about it sort of collectively, right? Yep. It doesn't make sense to break down each individual book because we'll just talk about them collectively. We'll kind of go through it, and then we'll talk about X-Men as a whole.
Yeah.
So the first one is X-Men number 101, October of 1976, origin and first appearance of Phoenix. Obviously, she's been a mainstay in all the MCU films, mainstay as part of the comics line. You know, you're going on, you know, almost 45 years already, Alex. It's crazy.
Yeah.
A 9.8 is $3,500. A 9.6 is $1,500. There's only 137 9/8 and 339 9.6s. So it's not a super low pop, but it's not a high pop on these books.
Right.
The next one is X-Men number 107, October of 1977. So exactly 1 year later. First full appearance of Starjammers. We'll talk a little bit about Starjammers in a minute. $5,800 for 9.8.
Yeah.
$900 for 9.6. There's only 49.8. There's only 159 9.6s. Then the next one, April of 1979, Alpha Flight Cameo. We talked about cameos and first appearances. $3,000 for 9.8. There's only 78 of them. Super low pop.
Wow.
X-Men 121, 1 month later, is the first full Alpha Flight. That's about $1,000. There's 313 9.8s.
Wow.
Then you get to X-Men number 129, which is only 8 months later, January of 1980. First Kitty Pryde, Emma Frost, and Sebastian Shaw. Obviously, Emma Frost, we know, has been depicted many times. That's the famous John Byrne cover.
Yep.
Those are about $1,900. There's only 289 9.8 to those. Then the following month, X-Men number 130, first Dazzler, February of 1980. There's 9.9. There's 255 9.8s, and that's about an $800 book. Also a John Byrne cover. And then you get to X-Men number 141, January of 1981, is the first Rachel Phoenix 2. That's the Days of Future Past storyline. That's an incredibly famous cover, incredibly famous. That's a $525 book. There's 9.9, and there's 622 9.8s, and that's also a John Byrne cover. There's one book that we're going to save for the end because I do want to talk about it separately. That's in the middle there, which is X-Men 94, which is a whole different subject matter. So let's go through some of these, sort of like, you've got Phoenix, you've got Starjammers, you've got Alpha Flight, you've got Kitty Pryde, Emma Frost, Sebastian Shaw, Dazzler, Phoenix 2. Some of these characters have appeared in the films, some of them not. Do we expect to see all of them in future films? What's driving Starjammers, Emma Frost, Kitty Pryde? What is it driving all this?
I mean, you're talking about probably one of the greatest runs in comics history. You know, this is a run of comics that nobody that reads comics is like, it's not that good. Like, everybody has read this in some form, whether it's in trade or single issues, going back and buying them. I mean, I think the two most collected runs is people coming in and being like, I'm trying to finish an X-Men run from 94 and up. I'm trying to finish an Amazing Spider-Man run from number 1 and up. I mean, these are huge books. And everybody you just mentioned, all these first appearances, Phoenix, Kitty Pryde, White Queen, Hellfire Club, Alpha Flight, although Alpha Flight's not been in the movies yet. I mean, these are characters that are super popular in the Marvel Marvel comics. Like these are people that are around. These characters aren't going anywhere. You know, and by the time you get to about 101 First Phoenix, these are also books that were probably the number 1 selling comic at Marvel at the time, other than Amazing Spider-Man. These were huge numbers. That's why you start seeing them in 131. The population for 9.8s are pretty large, but I mean, it was extremely popular. Wolverine carried that book for a while. People were huge Wolverine fans. The Wolverine miniseries came out. I mean, it was all because of this book. So, you know, the X-Men comics and all the first appearances, even now, I mean, you still see X-Men comics, you know, and you know, from the 90s that have first appearances of people that are still in the comics now. It's huge.
Yeah. Okay. So then the last book that we're going to talk about, which really deserves its own time, is X-Men number 94.
Yep.
This was a seminal moment in comic book history. It was August of 1975. There are 33 9.8s, 103 9.6s. So they're both super low pops.
Yeah.
9.8s are about $18,000. 9.6s are $4,500. They would probably be that price even if the pops doubled.
Yeah.
And that was a very, very seminal moment in history, Alex. Very, very important history. You've got the new team of X-Men, the second appearance of Nightcrawler, Storm, Thunderbird, Colossus. You know, you've got the whole new X-Men team.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that book, its importance. It's the Gil Kane cover with Dave Cockrum.
Yep.
It's got the Chris Claremont storyline. Like, talk a little bit about that moment, why it's so important in historical context, not just, oh, it's X-Men 94, it's another X-Men issue.
Yeah, I mean, X-Men 1 through 93 was a Silver Age run, and you know, from issues somewhere in the 80s, they became reprints. So X-Men about somewhere in the 80s till about 93 was all reprints of Silver Age X-Men comics. There was no new stories. When Giant Size X-Men came out, that was the revamp, that was the relaunch of the X-Men. And instead of going with a new X-Men number 1, they just went back to the numbering. So you go X-Men 93, which is a reprint, Giant Size X-Men, X-Men 94, which is brings the team back to the regular title, and that starts that run. That starts that Chris Claremont run that goes all the way to the 90s of just hit after hit of these X-Men books that, you know, talk about going back to the well. All of the X-Men movies are based on the Chris Claremont run. I mean, it's that's where all the stories come from.
Right. So, yeah, it's interesting. You know, I'll be interested to see, like, you know, like Nightcrawler had that amazing scene in the presidential office, which you talked about, but then, like, you didn't really see him again.
Right.
And Alan Cummings was great. So, you know, I do wonder, you know, do they reboot these characters? Do they bring them back? Do they do something else? And do they bring those actors back too? I mean, I do think a lot of them did really, really great jobs, you know, and I would like to see them back again. And then again, you don't have to go through the origin anymore. You don't have to, and I do recognize that some actors might be past it already, like Jennifer Lawrence might be past, you know, her time wanting to do that stuff, but they could recast some of those. So,
I mean, I think the casting of Wolverine has been talked about for years since the last Hugh Jackman movie, and there's no talk about an X-Men movie at all right now. There's no like, oh, there's a director involved. There's nothing, and people are like, oh, Taron Egerton is Wolverine, Daniel Radcliffe is Wolverine. Like, everybody's like, yeah, just let's cast him.
I want to see AVX, Alex. AVX.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Right. All right, Alex. To close of another show. Everybody out there, if you feel like we missed anything, this was a great 4-parter down memory lane. I love the memory lane shows. We're going to get back to our regular programming soon with some special guests over the next few weeks. So we'll start talking about, you know, all the new films, all the new announcements that we've heard out of Marvel, DC, fandom, everything else. We'll start to catch you up on all that stuff. And we will see you all next week. We will see you same bat time.
Same bat channel.
All right, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Bye.